coming to hang out today. I'm like really, really excited about discussing this strategy. It was working well when I first was experimenting with it in like mid 2021 when Uniswap v3 first launched. And because gas fees, transaction costs are way better now, it's so much more profitable that it just completely changes the game. So that's the big reason. I just realized this like in the last week. So I wanted to make sure that everyone in the Seeds community knows this too, so you can benefit. So if we don't already know one another, I'm Rachel. I'm the founder of Seeds, which is using blockchain tools to help people in need around the world. And it's working to transcend dysfunction in the old economic system through empowering people to build wealth through helping others, which I think is a key dysfunction, a key source of dysfunction in the legacy economic system. It's like the reason we have to have for-profits and nonprofits, because the old system leaves no space for giving. And that ends up excluding feminine energy and feminine people in a lot of cases as well. So Seeds is designed to transcend that. I talk about stuff like this, like what I'm going to share about today, because I'm excited about it. I like trading, but the larger mission is about essentially helping giving, generous people have more resources so that you can do more of what you're already doing, which is improving this world. It's like, I don't know if you've hung out in the cryptocurrency space at all recently, slash in the last couple of years, but it's become this like cesspool of the worst energy associated with like the death of late stage capitalism. And it's been so annoying for me and for Seeds. The misogyny has gotten even worse, and it was never good. So I want to reach the people who like feel that, but also know that the old system, like the legacy economic system, isn't working either, and know that we need alternatives. And I want to tell you, like, hey, Seeds is here. And at the same time, because I used to be a pro stock trader and I've been trading crypto since 2013, I can share these other like practical skills that you can utilize today to build wealth. And then like in the longer term, Seeds is intended to be this sort of transitional ecosystem to help us shift from the dysfunction in late stage capitalism into what I feel it in me. I'm so confident that we're shifting into this higher vibratory like existence on Earth, and we're getting away from zero sum transactional like designs and paradigms. And so we need ecosystems like Seeds that support that. And it's already here, it's already working, and it's going to work better and better the more generous giving people who are using it. So that's my deal if we don't already know one another. And let's see, I guess, yeah, let me show you to start. We're going to be talking about a strategy, a specific strategy that I'm using now to build wealth, and a way to, it involves trading Ether, which I'll show you and talk through in more depth. And at the same time, I want to acknowledge that, like, what I'm going to show you and the results that I'm getting, they're happening because I have money that I can use to make more money, right? And that's another core flaw that I found in the legacy economic system, right? Because then it means that if you don't have money, if you don't have access to generational wealth or a rich person who can just give you money so that you can then invest it. I mean, if we look at virtually every billionaire walking the earth today, almost all of them got so wealthy because they got access to capital from other rich people when they were starting out. Whether if it's, like whether it's like Donald Trump's dad giving him $1 million in whatever that would have been, the late 70s, I guess. I mean, it's debatable how rich that person actually is. But what I'm saying is that I want to acknowledge that this is a function of something I find very problematic in the legacy economic system. So Seeds is working to counteract this too. So you can actually use Seeds. Not many, a handful of people have used Seeds in the past to get funds so that they could invest those funds to make more money. So I want to make sure you're aware that like it's there for that purpose as well. It's there to provide you resourcing for anything that you may need. And all needs are important. We run into a lot of people who feel like they shouldn't ask for help because society shames people for that. I see this a lot in women, especially because women get conditioned to think that their needs are less important. They're supposed to be serving other people and often suffer a lot of consequences if they're setting boundaries to take care of themselves. So Seeds is here to help you with this too. And I want to make sure that's clear. This isn't just about like, oh, look at me, because I have this capital, I can use it to make more money. I'm super fortunate that I do have this capital to use, but you can get more capital too if you use Seeds, if you choose to do that. So let me just show you that real quick, to break this down if you're unfamiliar with Seeds, because like I said, this is the main reason I talk about this. I want to raise awareness about Seeds. So these are folks that Seeds has helped in the past. In these folks, let's see, the two on the left, the two pictures on the left are, the far left is a community in South Sudan that received help from Seeds to like pave this area around a well that UNAID dug for them. But then UNAID like pieced out and left them to stand in the mud to get this water that they obviously need. So they use Seeds to get the funds to pave the area around this hand pump. And I really like this example of Seeds at work because, first of all, it's like women and children who are fetching this water. And in South Sudan, up until very recently, as I understand, women weren't even issued federal IDs at all. So therefore, they can't open bank accounts. So they're just like completely left out by the legacy economic system. And then in this case, traditional aid, UN aid, also came up short for them. But Seeds, because we use decentralized blockchain tools, we were able to step in and help. And that's the gift of blockchain technology when it's actually used with the intention to help others, rather than, when it's a bunch of crypto bros using it just to like perpetuate greed and like all of the gross energy in the late stage capitalistic system. The second picture from the left is Kana Piath and her grandmother, who used Seeds to get the funds to allow Kana Piath to continue her education. Seeds has also been used to help a US military vet buy a new home because her mobile home was falling apart. And we've helped many people over the course of many years avoid homelessness or get out of homelessness, like the family on the right, Julie and her kids in the United States. So this is what Seeds is. You can use it to get help for whatever you may need, and you can do it if you redeem a single seed to ask for help. And they're cheap. They're very cheap. And if you're truly in a position where you can't afford to get a seed, we also have a community fund in our Discord that you can use to get a seed for free. So it's there to support you. That's why I'm talking about all of this. Okay. So let's start here. These are the results that I currently have from this position. Paul's in the chat. Can't wait to move out of this matrix. Right on. Yeah, I feel you. I think it's happening. I really do think it's happening. And I think Seeds is going to play a part in it. So yeah, I feel the same way. All right, y'all. So this is Uniswap's platform. The first like basic thing we need to make sure, if you're like a total beginner and this is totally new to you, awesome. I'm so happy you're here. The first thing we want to be careful to do is to make sure we're using the correct decentralized platform. So I just put this link in the chat. The links are also in the description if you're watching this recording later. So this is the link. Paul's like, go Seeds. Ah, that's so nice. So it's very important when we're using decentralized platforms like Uniswap, which we're going to use today, to make sure you're visiting the correct site. Because in like the last, I don't know, like 2.5 to 3 years, one of the more prominent scams has involved like fake websites popping up trying to trick people into thinking it's the legit website. And then you go to the fake website and you connect your wallet, like you can see over here. Actually, I think you can't see it because my face is in your way. Let me move myself. Sorry. Put myself over here. Yeah, so you can see in the upper top right, I have a wallet connected, a self-custody wallet. So these scam sites will pose as something like Uniswap. They'll convince you to connect your self-custody wallet to the site. And when you do that, you unknowingly give them access to your funds and they'll drain your wallets. So it's so important that we go to the correct website, not any fake or scam sites. So the way that I get around this is I bookmarked. Uniswap's really it's the premier like decentralized platform that I personally use. It pioneered this solution that nobody else could figure out for years. So I'd say it's still kind of the best and smartest platform in the space. So I would just say, like bookmark this link to make sure you're always going to the correct one. And like if there's ever any doubt whatsoever, like make sure you're not connecting your wallet to a site that you're not totally confident in. We've seen just some awful stuff happen to folks who've done this in recent years. And the thing about it that's like additionally tragic is that it's typically very difficult to get those funds back. So you just want to make sure you're using best practices to avoid that from happening. All right, so let me put myself back over here. Jan Fan's here. What's up? Oh, it's so nice to see you. Janelle says, I don't know if this is the right place to ask about stake seeds. If so, I can ask. Absolutely. Yeah. Um, totally. I mean, ask any questions you want. I'm sorry, I should have made that clear in the first place. Today I'm focusing like, okay, so first of all, I should say, like, if you've been in the seeds community for a while, like JanFan has, we used to call this quote unquote staking. That was like the term that was used. And it's kind of interesting to me anyway, to see like, because cryptocurrency is still a new sector, terms that are used and their meanings have evolved over time. So just recently, like in the last, I don't know, few months, we've started focusing on calling this LPing, liquidity providing, instead, because centralized platforms like Coinbase have started referring to staking as something else that gets you much lower returns and involves their centralized control. And that's what we want to get away from. So just to be more clear about the terminology, um, when I'm using the term LP or liquidity providing, I mean what we used to call staking. Um, Dasto Kika says, happened to me in all my original seeds, lost 6 ether and all of my seeds as well. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. You can always redeem a seed to ask for more funds. I mean, you could totally do that. But yeah, it's like the most tragic thing that can happen in the cryptocurrency sector, I feel. And I mean, with all of its flaws in the world of centralization, that is a protection that we tend to have, that we have more likelihood of recovering funds. But then the trade-off is that in the cryptocurrency sector, we can protect our funds and keep custody ourselves. And then we're not, like at risk of centralized failures like FTX in recent years, or Celsius or BlockFi or Voyager, any of the recent like big news stories you've seen, recent being in like, again, yeah, like up to the last 2 years, those failures in cryptocurrency were always about, virtually always about failures in terms of centralized exchanges holding on to the custody of their users' funds and then messing around and losing them. So when we use self-custody wallets, we're protected from that. But yeah, it's just these scams evolve over time. Obviously, this particular scam, I didn't really see it happening like 4-ish years ago. So yeah, it's just a tricky thing. We've always got to try to be careful. I'm so sorry that happened. So if we're looking at this, um, Janvin, you're so sweet. I'm happy to see you here. Okay, so let me look at my little list of things to talk about. To start, I wanted to show you these results that I've gotten in almost exactly 3 days. And actually, I should pull that up too. I'm sorry, I should have had this prepared. I wanted to actually show you the creation of this position on the blockchain. So let me see here. So I'm copying my wallet address on the far right. I've already connected this wallet to the platform. I'm going to go to etherscan.io, which is what's called a block explorer, which allows me to look at any transaction or any wallet address that has ever existed on the Ethereum blockchain ever. And anyone with an internet connection can do this. So I wanted to show you the creation of this position. And we're going to go to NFT transfers. Etherscan could stand to improve its user experience in a lot of ways, in my opinion. So like, it's not intuitive that you would go to NFT transfers to look at an LP position like this, but that's where it lives. And the reason for that is, this is kind of fun, I think, but when Uniswap version 3 launched in the middle of 2021, they created this functionality in which, like, anytime you're creating a position as an LP on their platform, you also mint an NFT. So I actually have NFTs associated with these positions, which is, I think that's kind of fun. So we can see here 3 days ago, this position was created. So if we click on the link, we can see that, yeah, it was at almost exactly this time, UTC. But the thing that's also exciting about this to me is that you can see that I added about $12,500 in WBTC wrapped Bitcoin and about $18,264 in Ether. So in total, that's what, like $30,700 or so. But you can see here that the total liquidity I have is over 87,000. That's gone up some too. But my point is just that when I created this position 3 days ago, I didn't even put the bulk of this liquidity on yet. I had like a little more than a third or so. It would have been a little bit more than that, fractionally speaking, because the total value of the position was less at that time. My point is just that like it's performed this well, even though I didn't have most of this liquidity on there earning money for me immediately. I added to it like throughout that day when I saw how well it was performing. So this is when I created the position, and we can see that it's been generating me fees since then. So I want to walk through this platform to kind of acquaint you with what you're seeing whenever you're looking at a position on Uniswap. So to get here in the first place, I'd already connected my wallet on the top right. As you've seen, I don't think I'll show you how to do that because it's pretty intuitive. It'll just say connect if your wallet isn't connected. You'll click on it, it'll pop some options, and then you'll link your wallet. And that's that. If anyone has questions about that, though, I'm happy to demonstrate. So once you're on the platform and your wallet is connected, then you go to pool if you want to either see your existing positions or create a new position, as you can see here. So we can see I have two here. I had an earlier one that I closed out because it went out of range. Excuse me. So we can click on this position, and this is the one I just been showing you. And yeah, so when we're here, if we're looking at the performance of a position, one thing we should pay attention to back it up a little bit. Okay, this is a WBTC, a wrapped Bitcoin and Ether position, right? So we see that up here at the top left. Here it says 0.3%. That means it's in the 0.3% fee tier, which means that whenever I've created this position, I'm essentially retaining custody of my money at all times. But then at the same time, I'm allowing traders to use that liquidity to execute trades, specifically in Bitcoin and Ether in this pool. And whenever they're executing those trades, they're paying a 0.3% fee, which goes to me and to any other liquidity providers in the pool. This is what was so like revolutionary. And I feel like I'm not overstating and using that word, because nobody could figure out how to do this in the past in terms of how to get away from the design of the old system, centralized exchange design, where it would typically, in the States at least, be like a handful of rich white men who would put up the liquidity to allow for an exchange to function. Like, for example, the Winklevoss twins, who are the co-founders of Gemini, the centralized exchange, they took a big chunk of the money they got from suing Mark Zuckerberg at Facebook. And then they put that up and they created their centralized exchange. When we're using decentralized platforms like Uniswap, we can come together in a much more democratic sense, offer up our liquidity, again, retain custody of it. I can remove this anytime I feel like it. I don't have to wait for like a bank or somebody to approve it and then wait 3 days for them to send a wire or whatever. And it's just, it's like 5 steps in a direction toward just like greater like financial equality. It's a huge fucking deal, in my opinion. So that's what this means whenever we see the 0.3% here up top. And we can see that this position is in range. And what that means is if we go down here, so I'm going to click on, you can see you can toggle back and forth between WBTC and Ether. I'm going to click on Ether because I feel like it's a little hard to wrap your brain around this anyway, because it's actually showing you the price in one cryptocurrency per the other cryptocurrency. So this is the price in Ether per Bitcoin, essentially. And I feel like that's a little bit easier to quickly understand than like if we're looking at the price in Bitcoin per Ether, because then it's like 0.04295. And yeah, I feel like this is just, for me at least, a little easier to grasp. If I'm looking at this and I'm seeing that like, okay, currently it's 23.28 Ether per WBTC, per wrapped Bitcoin. As a quick side note, it's wrapped Bitcoin rather than like straight up Bitcoin because Uniswap is built on the Ethereum network. So they had to come up with a version of Bitcoin that would work with Ethereum's functionality. So they wrap the Bitcoin with a bit of code that makes it essentially like an Ethereum version of Bitcoin that can work on this platform. So that's what that means. So, okay, let's take a look at the chat. Dasto Kika says it's Gil. Yeah, Gil, I thought it was you. You're still around though. Glad sees us too. Jan says, I had staked LP 2.4 Ether and like 150,000 seeds a few years ago. In my DeFi now, it shows only seeds, but like $2,039 worth, but no Ether. I feel like I'm missing something, but intended to do anything and lose it accidentally. Totally. So I'll talk about that. Let's talk about that right now, Jan Fan. Okay, we can talk about that in terms of this position too to help you understand, I think. So when we're talking about the min price and the max price here, and this would apply in any pair that you're adding liquidity to on the platform, on Uniswap's platform. So it can be seeds and Ether, literally any other pair. So we set a range. In this case, I chose a narrow range, a min price and a max price that are pretty close to each other. I'll talk about why I did that strategically here. Essentially, it can allow me to earn more fees more quickly, but there is a risk that it can go out of range more easily because it's a narrower range, right? The price is more volatile, then it could go out of range, in which case if I want to continue earning fees at this rate, I would have to either wait for it to come back into range, which sometimes happens, or I can just create a new position with a different range. If you can see here, like it's in faint print, but beneath where it says, like at the bottom of this min price and max price box, you can see there's like a typo on the left one because Uniswap's user experience is bad. But here, if you look on the right, it says your position will be 100% Ether at this price. Okay. So what that means is that if and when the current price goes outside of the range you've established, you're going to end up with 100% of one of the cryptocurrencies in the pair or 100% of the other. That's like a function of this design. Janelle, you probably remember, yeah, I think you would have been around, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you would have been around and probably using Uniswap v2 before version 3 launched in the middle of 2021. On Uniswap v2 on the older platform, we couldn't do this. We couldn't choose a narrow range. So we just added our liquidity and then it was there for like every price possible. So this couldn't happen. It couldn't go out of range. So you would never end up with 100% of one cryptocurrency in the pair or 100% in the other. But we can do that on Uniswap version 3. And so the risk again is that it can go out of range. But like folks that took our course before, hopefully you would remember, this is only like one part of the story. If we're looking at unclaimed fees, whenever I'm using a pool like Ether WBTC, like this is like probably I'll show you the list of pools here in a little bit. This is perhaps the most profitable pool in terms of the potential to earn fees of any pool on Uniswap's platform. Seeds is way, way smaller. So like you can't earn fees like this in the Seeds pool, at least not yet. So whenever I'm using this pool, I'm just doing it to earn fees. But with other pools, and Seeds is one of them, you can earn things like free airdrops, which as many of y'all know, it's just free money that often is just dropped into your wallet. That's evolved to some extent. The way you claim airdrops tends to be a little different today than it was like 3 years ago. But that can be a possibility, getting free airdrops, and also bonuses like the seeds bonuses that we've offered over years, which like to my knowledge were the most generous in the world of cryptocurrency. And they were like the most generous a few years ago to reward our earliest like participants. So it's not just the fees that can be a benefit whenever you're choosing to become a liquidity provider. And then in my opinion, I think a lot of y'all feel this way too, which is great. When you're choosing to LP in the Seeds Ether pool, we've started calling it a mutual aid pool because that's totally how it functions. Like you're helping people in need. And you're not doing that in any other pool that exists in the world of cryptocurrency or outside of it in that way, right? So like that's the biggest benefit, I think. So whenever it went out of range, that's when you end up with 100% of one cryptocurrency or the other. So yeah, you can wait for it to come back in range or not. And that's what shows you, like here, if we're looking at the liquidity in this pool, we can see that I have like $87,000, not counting my fees, right? So we can see that what comprises this $87,000, this is USD, is 15.39 Ether, which currently makes up 47% of this position, and 0.768 Bitcoin, which is slightly more than half of the position. This has fluctuated significantly even in the 3 days since I created this position. Like, I think it was like 2 nights ago. I was like lying in bed looking at this because I'm like so excited about it. And it had gotten down to 1% Ether. So I don't even remember what it would have been, maybe like 1.2 Bitcoin in the position. And so it was very close to going out of range, where in which I would have had 100% Bitcoin in this position and I would have stopped earning fees. So I was considering like, okay, should I like actually remove this liquidity and create a new position? Because I didn't want it to go out of range while I was sleeping so that I would like miss out on earning those fees. But it ended up like almost going out of range and then it came back. And now it's pretty even because we can see again that it's pretty close, to like 50-50 in terms of the breakdown of cryptocurrencies in this pair. So that's how you can tell, like, that's what the liquidity is. So if it's 100% in one cryptocurrency or the other, then that means that whatever is being shown is the value of 100% of that cryptocurrency, whatever amount that you see there. And then it's the same thing in fees down here, this 1066.84. That's comprised of 0.197 Ether and 0.009 Bitcoin that I've earned in fees from traders who are executing trades in this pool. This isn't going to change, though, the fees. These are just accumulated over time. It's not going to fluctuate in the way that the position itself is going to fluctuate. Although the price in US dollars can fluctuate because, like, if Ether goes up a bunch or if it goes down, the USD value of this could change. So I hope that makes more sense. Seeds have still not really popped this cryptocurrency market cycle. So we'll see what happens. But that's the reason that it's showing, like, it's just showing the value of whatever those seeds are in that position. And you can always totally remove it, as we talked about, and add it back if you want to. That's the other thing I'm so stoked about right now. It's a huge thing, is that, like, if you remember, like in 2021, gas fees were insane, and that often made it cost prohibitive to use Uniswap's platform. And that can still happen. I know that Paul pointed this out recently, that the fees got too expensive to use, like even like a couple weeks ago. But they're typically so much cheaper than they were in 2021. Like, if I click on this, I'm not actually going to remove this position, but I just want to show you, like, if I were going to, it's not showing you my MetaMask wallet, which is popping. It's literally telling me it would be 87 cents US dollars to remove this position, which is so awesome because it means, it's not going to compared to the profits that I'm able to make. That's a very nominal fee. And it gives me so much more flexibility in terms of removing the position and adding it back if I want to do so in a different range, if the range, has changed, if the current price has changed enough to make that make sense. It's such a huge deal. Like, when I was doing experiments surrounding this, which some of y'all remember, I was sharing them with the people in our course, who joined the course in 2021 or before, mid 2021 or before. And I was experimenting specifically with this pool, but the gas fees were so high that it would really cut into profits. And sometimes it would make it too cost prohibitive to do because, like, if I was choosing a narrow range, it would go outside of range too quickly, and the gas fees could easily eclipse like the profits that I would have made in fees, because the gas fees were just crazy high. But they've gotten a lot better. So this is like, I can't stress this enough. This is a much, much more viable strategy than it was even, like, I mean, I don't know. I mean, the merge was in September of 2022, so that helped with gas fees a lot, but there have been other improvements in the Ethereum network since then that have worked on this problem. Gas fees will for sure get higher as the market starts to pick up, but right now it's like not doing a whole lot. And so they're just way cheaper. So okay, let's see here. Jan said I don't recall. I think it was V2, but I would have to look for specifics. Yeah, if you ever had to migrate your cryptocurrency, that would have been from V2 to V3. Um, I feel like you probably were in the course. I think you took the course in like April 2021, but correct me if I'm wrong. Um, in which case you would have been in the course that was like just before V3 launched. Um, so that would have been migrating. And I should say really quickly too, you do have the option to choose the full range on Uniswap V3 now if you don't want to deal with the risk of it going out of range. And that can make a lot of sense in adding liquidity to the Seeds Ether pool if you want to do that. But in my case, in terms of this strategy, which I'm going to talk about in more depth, I really want to use a narrow range because I'm trying to leverage this capital to maximize my earned fees. And that strategy like doesn't make sense in the Seeds Ether pool in the same way because it's still so much smaller and trade volume is so much smaller. So fees are lower, and folks that are adding liquidity there are typically doing it for other reasons, like the airdrops, potential bonuses, and then like the fact that it helps people in need. Okay, so let's see, you got a little bit more in the chat. Akchi Bless says, hello, Rachel. Hello. So Janelle says, so if I'm not misunderstanding, the value of my LP is only the $2,000 of the seeds and the 2.4 Ether is gone. Yeah, if that's what it's showing, whatever the dollar amount reflected there is the current value of the position, but it can always come back into range. So you could wait for that if you feel like it, or you could choose to remove it and add back to within another range if that's your preference. Yeah, it just depends on what you want to do. And it's still early in the market cycle. The Bitcoin halving just happened in April of 2024, April 19th. And that's historically kicked off the market movements. So we'll see what happens. But my expectation is that things are going to go up a good deal heading into late 2025. And again, we like past performance doesn't guarantee future results and so forth. But Ether went up a lot last cycle. It outperformed Bitcoin and Seeds outperformed Ether. Again, we don't know if that's going to happen this next time, but we'll see. It's still early, so I don't want you to worry. Um, I know it can feel weird, especially if it's like your first market cycle, because things have come down and that has happened every time. And so I'll like invite you to go back to one of the core ideas that we talked about in the course, which is just this idea of like, if you still believe in the fundamentals of something, if you don't, then you can get out of a position and you should do that. It's important to like be self-aware and honest about how you feel about a position and to get out of it if you no longer believe in it. But if you do still believe in a position when things are down, that's the opportune time to buy. That's the best time to buy. And I'm going to talk about that in relation to Ether here in a second too. Yeah. Gil says those are earnings on the position and it's 3 days old. Yeah. This, whatever it is, again, it's like, yeah, 1065 right now. That was earned in 3 days. Yep. Paul says, so Ether goes below 30%, then it'll be out of range. I'm not sure I know what you mean, Paul. Like up here, it'll go out of range. It'll say 0% Ether if it's gone out of range. And that will happen. It'll go out of range in that direction. If you can see here again, the max price, your position will be 100% Ether at this price. So if it goes above 24.0669 Ether per Bitcoin, which would mean that Ether has actually gone down in relation to Bitcoin, then it would be out of range and the position would become 100% Ether. Is that what you mean? And vice versa. If it went below 22.6655 Ether per Bitcoin, then my position would be 100% Bitcoin. So that's how that works. Let me know if that doesn't make sense. Okay. Jan says, I definitely believe in seeds, so I want to stay. I'm more so unsure of my own capabilities. Oh, that's sweet. Yeah, I hope that, let me talk about the strategy overall and like Ether right now and what I'm thinking. Hopefully that'll help too. And let me know if I can do anything more to reassure you. I'm realizing like, I mean, we talk about this in the course as I'm sure you remember. And part of the reason I'm doing this today is because I still get questions from folks about LPing who have taken the course. And it's like an online course, right? So like not everybody is able to like stay on top of it and do all the homework and everything at the time it's being offered. So I understand that it's not like you're sitting in a course at a college or something in person. So I know that some of these more complex maybe concepts can get lost. So I wanted to like do this today to emphasize like what this is and try and really illuminate any questions relating to it that might still exist, especially because like I said, gas fees are so much better now. So it's like, I think this is, I feel like I say this a lot, but like I only say it because I really mean it. Now is such an opportune time, y'all. Okay, and let's talk more about why. So this is part of my larger strategy relating to specifically adding liquidity to this pool, the Ether WBTC pool. I'm doing this because I want to own a lot of Ether and I wanted to buy as much as I could as cheaply as I could, like nowish, like in the last few months, especially since the Bitcoin halving on April 19th ish. I've been trying to load up. The reason for that is the Bitcoin halving itself, because that's been a catalyst for like the huge market movements that we've seen in the past. It happens only roughly every 4 years and it tends to kick things off. And then on top of that, as many of y'all know, an Ether ETF or exchange traded fund launched in the United States on July 23rd. That's basically kind of like a stock market version of Ether, of the cryptocurrency. So, what this means is that folks who are maybe too afraid to get involved with cryptocurrency directly, but who do trade the regular stock market, excuse me, they now have this opportunity to get involved with cryptocurrency and specifically Ether in a way that probably feels more familiar and comfortable to them. So this just makes it so much more likely that more people are going to buy and it's going to drive prices up. But what's happened since this launched on July 23rd, so that's only what, like 2.5 weeks ago, is that the price has actually come down. So I was like salivating, y'all, because it really came down a good deal. And I was just like, yes, like I said earlier, like when you believe in something and the price drops, that's the time to buy. And that's really what, as you like develop your muscles as a trader, those are the moments that it's really easy to say, like buy low, sell high. Like obviously we all know that's how things work. But whenever it's happening, especially if you have a position on and suddenly it goes against you and it drops, it's so easy to get freaked out and want to sell and sell at a loss. And as you become a more experienced trader, the muscle that you build is this recognition that like actually these are the times that make the great profits for you as a trader. Whenever that drop happens, it's just like, oh yeah, this is such an awesome opportunity. I want to get in with as much money as I can at that time. If again, you still believe in the fundamentals of your idea. And it's really important to be honest with yourself about that. Trading can keep you humble and it forces you to be honest in those ways, because a lot of times when you're not, that's when you get wrecked and it's a painful, often expensive lesson to learn. So since Ether just came down, this is Gemini's centralized platform. I feel like I say this all the time too. To be clear, Gemini I think is awful. This is probably what I typically say is they're like the least worst centralized platform. We only have to use centralized platforms because we still need to use something to trade fiat currency like the US dollar or the rupee or the GBP or whatever currency you're using in order to get cryptocurrency. So they're like still a necessary evil. I'm literally involved in a lawsuit against Gemini right now because they took a bunch of my Ether. Um, Hopefully that's going to be resolved soon. But they're terrible. Like if you, which you likely will, if you're using a centralized platform like this, the best practice is to get your money off of it as soon as possible and into your self-custody wallet. I'll say this briefly. I think most of y'all know this. Self-custody wallets, we know it's self-custody if we have exclusive access to the key or the mnemonic for that wallet. The ones we still tend to recommend are Coinbase Wallet's self-custody tool because it's more user-friendly. And I also use MetaMask because they have a Chrome extension. A lot of wallets do now anyway, but it's like an older tool that was developed through the Ethereum, through Consensus, which is like their marketing arm. That's too much detail, but the key thing is like, it's self-custody if you have the key or the mnemonic. So get your crypto off of centralized exchanges and into your self-custody wallet as soon as you can, because like literally there are no good centralized platforms that I can think of in the cryptocurrency sector. It's just like they don't care about customers. They really don't. Okay, so let's take a look at the Ether graph here, the Ether USD graph. Gemini like updated this platform too, and it looks so much shittier in my opinion. It's like the graph is like way less readable, which was like a big part of the reason I used to use it. Okay, so this is the longer term graph. If we look at this again, we saw that the Ether ETF started trading on Tuesday, July 23rd, right? So if we go back here, let's zoom out. Up here at top, we can choose different time intervals. So I'm going to choose 30 minutes, going to do it. Nope. Let's go back to like the 6-hour graph. Okay, so if we look at this, here's July 23rd. So like nothing really happened and then it sold off. This looked to be an instance of this idea of like buying the rumor and selling the news, which is an adage you'll hear about in the cryptocurrency and just trading in trading circles in general. They say that. I used to be a stock trader for anyone who doesn't know, and that was like a phrase that people used. If we're looking at buying the rumor here, let's see, we'll go back far enough. Yeah. So right around May 20th, I think it was officially quote unquote announced like May 23rd that it looked like the Ether ETF was actually going to get, it was approved. And then they had to do various things to get ready to start trade. So this was people buying the rumor on May 20th that it was going to get approved. And then it did a few days later. And then we were waiting for actual trade to launch, which was July 23rd. And then we had this sell off. So in a smaller case here, it looks like people sold the news. And then it wasn't really doing anything. And then it had this huge drop off here. And people were actually blaming like other macroeconomic factors that affected the stock market, which is kind of interesting. That didn't used to happen in the cryptocurrency sector, but as like more institutional money has come in, it's become more of a thing. So this is when I got super excited. So it dropped down to like it hit 2200 or so. You can't see it on the shitty graph because it has like the volume bars at the bottom like interfering, which looks terrible and makes it harder to read. But yeah, I got down to like I think below 2200 in a couple, we can kind of tell I guess here. 2187-ish or so here. So I was just like, yes, like I had been trying to buy as much as I could below like 3400 because that looked like it'd be a good place to buy back here when it was hanging out like 3900. I was excited to get those prices. When it dropped this much, I was just like, okay, I'm going to load up as much as I can. So I tried to do so. So if we look at, here's my order history here at the bottom. And to be clear, I was so excited about this that I moved. This is a pretty big chunk of money for me, this position. And I'm able to do this now because I moved funds, personal funds from like another asset into this because I'm so confident that there's this huge profit potential, specifically at this moment in time. So I made that choice, which I hadn't ever done in the past for various reasons. But yeah, just the timing really worked out well for this. And so I was so excited. So if you can see here below, let me make sure that's clear. Yeah. At the bottom here, you can see my order history. So you can see that like, yeah, so like 3 days ago is when I was loading up on Ether to create this position. So I was buying at like, it looks like the best price I got was like 23.20. So I wasn't able to catch it when it hit 2200. The money hadn't yet hit my bank account. So I didn't have it available to catch this. But I was able to get like this dip. So it went back up to 2550 or so here, August 6th, the day before. And then it came back down to like 23.20. Yeah, so this was about the best that I could have done at that point in time, I think. So I got some at 23.21, 23.20, and then above that, 23.30. So I was just trying to buy little dips as this was moving. I like in being honest with myself about my trading style and potential areas of danger that I need to be mindful of is that I can get so excited about these things that I can be overzealous with my buying. So I was trying to remind myself to be more patient and to look for those moments. And yeah, so look, I had an order in at 22.22 that I canceled because it just didn't get down that low. So I had to start buying at a higher level. So yeah, these are pretty decent buys. I'm not unhappy with these. I think these are going to be like, they're going to look super good in the next 6, 8, 10, 12 months, especially as I think things are heading up. So yeah, just to give you a sense, like this is where I was buying 2372, 2387, and so forth. So I was loading up in those areas. And then I moved this over to Uniswap. I moved this off of Gemini's exchange, centralized exchange, into my self custody wallet so I could connect my wallet to Uniswap to create this position. Okay, I wanted to talk a little bit about why I chose Ether and WBTC for my pair. And I want to show you that here actually. This is so shitty. I'm sorry this graph isn't bigger. It used to be until like a few weeks ago. So the reason I chose, part of the reason I chose Bitcoin and Ether for my pair is because they tend to be pretty correlated in terms of their price movements. And we can actually see that on the graphs. So here we're still looking at the Ether graph. Let's go back to like a day interval. Here's the Ether graph longer term. This goes back to April 2nd, which is my birthday. And if we look at the Bitcoin USD graph, did it go back to April 2nd? See, this is so annoying. It doesn't like maintain the degree to which I zoomed out. Okay. I'm trying to make a point and Gemini's like undermining me at every turn. I'm trying to show you that the graphs tend to be similar. This used to be easier to show you on the using their older interface as well. This only goes back to August. Did I misread that? It did say April 2nd, didn't it? Okay, this is Ether USD going back to February 7th. Okay, so this is comparable. So hopefully this gives you a sense that the movements are pretty similar, more or less. This is Bitcoin back to February. And this is Ether back to February. So that matters when you're creating a position on Uniswap and you're choosing a pair, because this is something I figured out on my own. I haven't I guess I figured out almost all of this on my own. You can find tutorials and other people talking about these strategies, I'm sure, but something I realized through doing my own experiments was that when you're choosing a pair and you're wanting to go with a narrow range like I did here, because when you choose a narrow range, that leverages your capital much more efficiently, which means that the $87,000 that I have in this range, this is like, I don't know the specific equation that they're using to calculate this, but when we're leveraging capital more efficiently, it means that for this price range, this narrow price range that I chose, this could be like having $870,000 in liquidity for a wider range. I'm just leveraging it and only adding it to that narrow range. So again, that's why I'm only earning fees in that range, but it's so much more impactful because it's like it's stacking all of that in that narrow range. Whereas if I was adding a greater amount to a wider range, it would be spread out over that wider range and I would be earning less at each price within that range. So hopefully that makes sense. So when you're choosing these narrow ranges, I find that if you're choosing cryptocurrencies that tend to move together in terms of their market price, like on the graphs I just showed you, they're going to be likelier to stay within that narrow range because they tend to move together, right? So that became a core part of something, that I figured out strategically to make this work. So that's a big part of why I chose this pool. And then I want to actually show you like more about why this specific pool is attractive to me. Let me look back at the chat to see. Gil says, do you advise any hardware wallets or know of any wallet type that can store BTC and Ether plus alts? I don't personally advise hardware wallets because I think it's kind of a waste of money. You can be as secure if you use something like you can use like a multi-sig wallet like Gnosis Safe if you want to do that. I'm not sure. They're probably storing, I don't know if they're storing Bitcoin, if they're allowing people to store Bitcoin yet. I assume they probably are. And actually, I think they're called Safe now instead of Gnosis Safe. So yeah, I don't spend, in my opinion, I don't think it's worth it to spend $170 or whatever it is on a hardware wallet. And I've also heard about people having trouble with their hardware wallets. Like I would say just use a multi-sig or use cold storage where you just are, you have good practices in place where you're keeping your keys offline as much as possible. And then like Coinbase Wallet's self-custody tool allows you to store all kinds of cryptocurrencies now. It's not just Ether, and it hasn't been just Ether for a while. So yeah, Coinbase Wallet can be a good basic way to do that too. But yeah, I get kind of, I don't know, I think hardware wallets kind of hoodwink people a little bit, because a lot of folks, when they're starting out, and I know you've been around for a while, Gail, and you've been involved in cryptocurrency for years, but I think a lot of times they like make people that are newer to the sector think that they have to buy a hardware wallet, and you totally don't. I've never used one. I just am careful about storing my keys. And if you're using a multi-sig wallet like Gnosis Safe, or Safe as it's called now, multi-sig means that multiple wallets have to sign off in order for a transaction to take place. So that could prevent issues with phishing and issues where your cryptocurrency gets stolen if you add it to if you unknowingly add it your connect your wallet to like a scam site. They're not going to be able to transact from that wallet if it's multi-sig, because somebody else has to sign as well. So that can protect you from that specific issue if you want to go with a multi-sig instead. Okay, so yeah, going back to why I chose this pool. Okay, if we look here, okay, this is the Explore tab on Uniswap. It used to be called Analytics, which also I think like makes more intuitive sense. I'm like constantly frustrated with like poor user experience in the cryptocurrency world, and Uniswap is among the worst. Okay, but if we're exploring, we're looking at pools. You can see down here we're looking at pools. Okay, we can see that it's ranking things in terms of different categories. This is a descending list in relating to like the TVL for each pool. TVL stands for total value locked. That's the total amount of money in each of these pools. We go up here, we can see that the total TVL on Uniswap itself is over $3 billion. Like 5 days ago, when Ether had just dropped a bunch, it was 1 billion something. I saw that and I was like, oh, that's interesting, because it's been up, I think, to like 5 billion. I think I've seen it at 5 or so. So the fact that it had dropped to like 1 billion meant that a lot of people were taking their crypto off of Uniswap's platform because they were worried about Ether's descent, which is, in my opinion, like a novice strategy, because if you're adding your liquidity, you really benefit from that trading volatility. The biggest chunk of money that I made so far in fees on this position happened as Ether started coming back up, because there was more trade volume and therefore you're earning more in fees. So anyway, I just thought that was kind of interesting when I noticed that the other day. So we can see that people have already added back over $1 billion in total value locked. So I'm less interested in seeing the ranking in terms of total value locked. Although that's important, we need to see that there's liquidity in a pool. So in order, if our strategy is just about earning fees, we want to look for liquidity, and then we want to look for trade volume, which is much more important, because if there's more volume, that means more traders are trading and therefore paying fees to the people that have added liquidity to that pool. So I'm much more interested in like the 1-day volume and the 7-day volume here. So like we can see here that changes the ranking. So like, even though this pool is the biggest in terms of total value locked, it's not the biggest in terms of volume. The other thing here, again, to remind, is that it's the 0.3% fee tier. So we can see here, like if we look at 7-day volume, for example, there's a pool for WBTC Ether, but this is the 0.05% fee tier. And we can see that it's doing way more in volume, right? But the thing about this is, let's find the other one. Okay, here's WBTC Ether 0.3%, the pool that I've added liquidity to. So it's doing a lot less in volume. But the thing is, with every trade here, you know, I'm earning 0.3%, which is 6 times what you're earning if you add liquidity to the 0.05% pool. That's right, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, yeah. So that would mean that I would want to see that the volume here is 6 times what I'm seeing it at for the 0.3% fee tier, in order for this to make sense, in order for this 0.05% pool to appear to be more attractive to me as somebody who's trying to earn money in the fees, right? And it's not 6 times that. Here, the 7-day volume is 355.2, and here it's 864.9. So it's not even close to 6 times this amount of volume. So that tells me that this pool is more attractive to me. And if we look at this list too, like, as I said, I determined that finding cryptocurrencies that move in correlation seem to be a better strategy because it means that they stay in a narrower range for longer. If we look at these other pools, this is a lot of stablecoin pools. Stablecoins are cryptocurrencies that are tethered typically to the US dollar, or, although there are a few now that I believe are tethered to the euro and maybe even the GBP. What we're seeing here is tethered to the US dollar. So, like, USDC is one. Side note, they're Coinbase's stablecoin, so I don't like using them because I don't like Coinbase. USDT Tether is another stablecoin. These are two stablecoins. These are all like stablecoin, non-stablecoin pairs. So the thing about that is, as I said, they're not going to be as correlated because the stablecoin doesn't move. It just stays, assuming it's functioning properly, because there have been stablecoins that have gone awry. It should stay very close in value to the US dollar, which means that you're not getting the full benefit of the potential for cryptocurrency to go up if all your cryptocurrency or big chunks of it are in stable coins. People typically tend to do this to like hedge their investments. And that can make sense for some trading strategies, but that's not what I'm personally interested in doing here to maximize my profits. So that's another reason that this pool looks so attractive. The WBTC, sorry, that's not it. The WBTC Ether pool right here, because it's like nearly the top ranked, right? In terms of like non-stablecoin pairs. I don't even know what WSCF is. This must be, I think this is, I think this is like a derivative of something that probably shouldn't talk about because it's too confusing. But it's not a traditional non-stable coin. This other option that's like one of the few that is not a stablecoin pair in the top ranked pools listed here. So hopefully that makes sense. These are my reasons for choosing the WBTC Ether 0.3% pool. Again, that they're both non-stable coins. This fee tier looks like it's going to pay the best for the trade volume. And yeah, that's it. And it's the trade volume again is what gets us paid. So that's the number one thing that I'm looking for. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the range a bit. Gil says, I just think about what happens if the electricity goes out. That's why I ask. Yeah, well, I mean, if the electricity goes out, then a hardware wallet is only going to work for so long too. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, if it's just exists on the blockchain, like your wallet is on the blockchain regardless of what tool you're using to access it, and that's just there. Um, Unless like the entirety of the internet infrastructure goes away and is not able to be recovered, which is highly unlikely. Like electricity isn't going to have anything to do with whether or not that's there, you know? It's just a matter of accessing it. And yeah, I mean, obviously you can do whatever you want. If you want to get a hardware wallet, cool. But I tend to think that it's going to be better for most folks to just use that $170 or whatever it is, $150 to just buy more cryptocurrency. I think that's typically going to serve you better as long as you're using your wallets in safe ways, and multi-sig wallets can fill that gap, like I said, if you're concerned. All right. So what I want to do today, like this is taking longer than I thought, but there's kind of a lot to talk about. Check it out. So it's already at $1,080. So it's earned like 30-ish. That's not right. 24 more dollars or so since we've been talking. Okay. So while we're looking at this position, I want to show you, I'm going to do something with this position, and then I'm going to talk a little bit more about how I created the position so that you're hopefully comfortable creating a position too if you want to do that. Something that is not clear on this platform, which is annoying. It's more evidence of not great UX. And this wasn't the case before. If you ever use Uniswap v2, this was not an issue. On Uniswap v3, these fees, they're not a part of my liquidity. They're distinct, right? Excuse me. So that means they're just sitting here and they're not earning me more in fees. So if I want to use this $1,000 or whatever to earn even more money, I'm going to have to actually collect the fees and then add them to the overall position. Okay, so I want to do that now. I'm gonna screenshot this. Oh, the other thing I should mention is that when you close a position, it doesn't show you anything about how it performed. Like the record, like look at this closed position. It literally tells you nothing, except it does have the range I selected. But it doesn't show like how much it was or what I earned. It's really, it'd be nice to have that record available online, but Uniswap is shitty that way. So just be aware of that too. So I'm gonna screenshot this so that, whoops, just to remember that this is where I was at when I collected these fees. So I'm gonna collect these fees and then I'm going to add them to the overall position. All right, so I'm clicking on collect fees. Actually, sorry, let me walk that back just so you can see to make sure everything's clear. Let me refresh this real quick. Oh, now it's at 1082. Okay, so if I'm collecting the fees, that means I'm collecting 0.009 in Bitcoin and 0.204 in Ether. Then I click on collect. You can't see this because OBS, my program, doesn't show it to you, but it's telling me it's going to cost $1.31, now $1.38 max to claim this. I'm going to confirm that because that sounds good to me. I think it's a way better fee than I've seen a lot of times whenever I was engaging with cryptocurrency. So I just confirmed it in my wallet, in my MetaMask wallet, and I'm waiting for that to complete. It's taking a while though. It should already be happening. It says a previous transaction is still being signed or submitted. Okay, it's still there. Let's see. I'm opening up my MetaMask wallet again. I think I have to reject these previous transactions. MetaMask does this now and I'm not into it. I don't want to see the transaction here. Sorry, I'm like complaining. Let's go back. Okay, it looks like it did work. The transaction worked. So if I go back to my position, the fees are no longer there. And if I look at my wallet, which you cannot see, and I apologize for that. I'm trying to think if there's a way that I could show you really quickly through like the MetaMask wallet itself. I don't think there is a way to do that quickly. Oh, you can see that. Okay, that's good at least. Yeah, okay. So if you're looking at this, and I go to the correct wallet, and we look at tokens, we can see what I have in Ether and what I have in wrapped Bitcoin. So now this is where we have to use a little math. And if anyone knows of a tool that can help us take care of this, please let me know because I'm not aware of one. And Uniswap should really have something available that helps us do this. So, I have roughly equal parts Bitcoin and Ether. But what I have to do, I want to add this liquidity to the same position, which means it's going to add it in the same ratio I initially chose, ratio of Ether to Bitcoin, that I initially chose when creating this position. So I'm going to click on increase liquidity to add to this position. So it's already got this figured out for me. You can see here that it's like borrowing. This is the same amount of Bitcoin and Ether shown here, is shown at the top here. If I'm adding liquidity, same min and same max. So if I go down here, I want to see if I have close to correct ratios, but I don't quite have it. So I may want to make a little trade to get closer to precisely the amount that I want to add. I want to add all of it. And in order to do that, I might have to make some swaps in order to get the percentages correct for this. Okay. So we can see this. This is pretty close. I have the, okay. So this is showing me that if I want to add my max amount of Ether, which is 506.86, I'm going to drop this in here. So if I say 506.86, and that would mean that the max amount of Bitcoin I can add is 448 447.48. I'll drop this in here. So this is the percentage that it's at right now, close to 47% and 53%. So that means if I'm adding to this position and I want to add as much of my cryptocurrency as possible, I need to get what I'm adding to roughly this percentage, as close to this percentage as I can. So that's about 493 worth of Bitcoin and 558 worth of Ether. I should say Ether. 558 in Ether, 493 in Bitcoin. So what did this say again? Yeah. So it's like not super far off. Should I continue with this to show you this now? If it were more disparate, maybe I would care more. I mean, I would care more. Um, since we're already over an hour, I think I won't actually make that swap. I can share this in our Discord or something to help folks understand. It gets annoying because this can cut into your profits too if you're making these swaps. But since this is only like $100 off, I'm not super. I'll just do it. I'll just do this like this. I'll just add it as is. But if you want to get more precise, you do have to make those calculations. And I'm not aware of a tool that allows you to do that besides like just figuring it out on your own. And this is only $1.19, so that's great. Yeah, and I want to make sure to talk to you about creating the position. So yeah, it seems like we should save a little bit more time for that. Okay, it should be confirming it. It says it's complete. Let's go back to the position. So yeah, we can see that it added a bit here. Hopefully you can tell that. Cool. Okay. And in my wallet, I still have, how much is left unadded? Let's see. Yeah, about $25 in Ether and $103 in Bitcoin. So I may go back and add that later since it's so cheap, but that's not so bad. Sometimes it's like sometimes you have to make multiple swaps to get there. I've had to do so in the past, which can be a pain. But yeah, so we have to calculate that on our own. Okay, so as the last thing, let me show y'all how I created the position in the first place. I totally do this for you if I wish I had more money that I could add to create another position. Although I used to overlap positions to try and mitigate the chances that it would go out of range. But now, because it's so much cheaper to just remove your position and add it back, I'm tending to want to have all my liquidity in a single position to really maximize the degree to which I'm leveraging that capital. So I don't have capital available to create a new position to show you, unfortunately, but I want to give you an idea of how that would look and how I thought through this particular strategy. So if I were creating a new position, I would have to choose the pair. And again, this is the pair that I've talked about the reasons that I like and why I've chosen this pair and why I've chosen this fee tier. Here you can see this full range button. Like we talked about before, you can select this if you want to never have to deal with it going out of range. And that can make sense in certain pools. It probably will make more sense in the Seeds Ether pool, depending on what your strategy is. If you want to like maximize bonuses, a narrower range can make sense there. Or you can choose full range. But again, here for the strategy, I want to go with a narrower range. I'm clicking on Ether because I want to see the price in Ether per Bitcoin because that's easier for me to wrap my brain around. And then if we go down here in this super beautiful graph, we can see that this is the max. So I can slide that in. And this is the min. See, like, why did it just do that? It just overlapped for no reason. The gray line is the current price. So let's refresh this because these paddles like are hard to reset sometimes. It just disconnected my wallet for some reason and it didn't reset the paddles. Okay, it did at least let me move it. So just to speak about this a bit, when I was choosing the range, I wanted to get as tight as I could on the top. And you can adjust this up here too. So when I created the range, I got within, I think it was like around here, like just above the high price, sorry, just above the current price when I was establishing my range. And the reason for that, and this can seem slightly complex, is that when I was creating the range on August 7th, right? So let's see. this is a little too, let's go to like the 6 hour graph. Okay, on August 7th, things were here and they just come back down. So if you recall, I was trying to buy as much as I could. I was buying around like 2350 to 2400-ish, around in that range. 23, I think I got some, what, 2320s or so. So I was buying this dip here. And my thinking was that because Ether had come down so much and Bitcoin hadn't really to the same extent, I figured that Ether was probably going to go up at a greater rate than Bitcoin was. And even though they're pretty correlated, if Ether, as it retraced, as it came back up, if it outpaced Bitcoin in terms of its upward movement, that would mean that the price, stay with me on this, okay? The price of Ether per Bitcoin would actually go down because Ether would gain more value than Bitcoin would in that relatively within that framework, that time frame, and in terms of their correlation. So yeah, Ether, the price would go down because it would take less Ether to be worth an equivalent amount of Bitcoin if Ether were outperforming Bitcoin on the graphs. So my thinking was that I wanted to get as tight as I could on the higher range because I thought that the price of Ether per Bitcoin was probably going to come down since that huge movement had just happened and it was starting to retrace. So I skewed this a little bit toward the like down direction. So I wanted to get super tight in terms of the max. So I know it was within 3%. I wish I could show you, but it doesn't like retain that data to show people or for you to have for yourself. But I skewed it a little bit, like it was a little bit wider on the low end. So it was still pretty tight, but it wasn't quite as tight. I think it was, maybe it was like inside of 5% or something like this. So you can see this here. And so far, that range has ended up working out quite well. Because, like I said, the other night I was lying in bed and it got to, can we see this here? It got to 1% Ether. So it was almost out of range on the low end. So the idea that I had was playing out. But then it came back in to range. So I didn't have to remove it in and create a new range. So let me just show you the position one more time if I can find it. Maybe I can go this way. Oh, my wallet's not connected. That's why. It will like just auto disconnect your wallet sometimes as like a security measure. Um, MetaMask does that. And I'm sure other self-custody wallets do it too. Okay, yeah, so I'm back in my position and here's where we are. So we'll see how that performs over the next several days. Um, and I think that's it. Yeah, so let's see if there's anything else in the chat that y'all wanted to talk about. Janfest, hope I didn't derail you, but that did answer some of your confusion, my confusion. Okay, good. I'm glad. Yeah, if anything else doesn't make sense, please let me know. I really like, my concern is like, I really hope that no one ever feels misled. I'm trying my best to like communicate all of this, especially as it relates to the seeds pool, because that's so important because without our seeds mutual aid pool, like we can't send money to people in South Sudan who don't have traditional bank accounts. So yeah, as with anything in the world of cryptocurrency, it's not without risk, of course. But in terms of the benefits, including in like adding liquidity to the Seeds Ether pool, some of y'all benefited from this. I don't know if it's anyone that's here today, but I mean, an airdrop that we got because we added liquidity to the Seeds Ether pool back in the day. It was huge and like it was so generous. It was the Uni airdrop in late 2020. And I say this a lot, but like I had some crypto just sitting in a wallet that I hadn't LP'd. And afterward, I was kicking myself because there was no reason that I hadn't added it. And if I had added it, I could have like literally bought a house in the States, like a nice house, with the free money I got from that airdrop. So there are all of these benefits. And so, yeah, it's just, I really want nice people to be getting these benefits. Y'all deserve it. You're already doing, you know, wonderful things to improve this world. I want you to have more resources to be able to do more of it. So as a last thing, I'll just say, if it resonates, I hope you'll consider engaging with Seeds, consider making a gift to Seeds. You'll receive Seeds cryptocurrency and thanks. 100% or more of the value of your gift. You can buy seeds on Uniswap as well, and that also supports the project. And you can LP your seeds in Ether in the Seeds Mutual Aid Pool if you want to do that too. Anything you want to do to help is so, so appreciated. We really want to find more like-minded people who know that the old system isn't working, and who maybe are totally turned off by the gross energy in the cryptocurrency sector. Like, that's who we're trying to connect with. So it's been tough because, yeah, I've just struggled a lot, especially in the last couple of years, because there's been so much negative press about cryptocurrency at large. It's been hard for seeds to get that message through. And I'm hoping that focusing more on YouTube now is going to get that done this time around. I used TikTok a lot last market cycle, but TikTok just like doesn't really work anymore. Okay. Paul says, thank you for being so mindful and having this on a Saturday. You're the best. Oh, thank you, Paul. Thank you for joining on a Saturday, really late for you. I appreciate that a lot. Okay, if y'all have any questions like ever, please feel free to join the Discord. I'll put that in the chat. I personally monitor it every workday, which is 4 days a week for us. I am about to go on vacation though for 2 weeks, so I won't be monitoring the Discord during that time. But other people in the community are hanging out there too. And it's also like you can search it for added information if you needed it. There's the Discord. Um, I think that's it. I appreciate y'all so much. Thank you for all the good work that you do just to make this world a better place. I appreciate you. And yeah, I'll catch you next time. Okay, take care. Have a good day. Bye. Hmm.